Let's use fetch to get actual GitHub information. GitHub API, I have a little too much open here. One of the things I have open here is api.github.com, which just returns a bunch of stuff just by going straight there. And it is documented somewhere. But the endpoint we're going to use is very simple. api.github.com/users/ and then some username. And that gets you a whole lot of information about that username in a lovely JSON format. So it looks like this is the user data right here. So we want to fetch that when we load this component, right? How about that? So we could add a constructor. Store the username in state, or the user, actually the user data that we get back. Let's store that in state. So this dot state equals user. User is an empty object to start with, but we want to populate it with what we get out of fetch. So GitHub user right now, we know has the username, right, as match, this.props.match.params.username. So let's use that. To use props inside the constructor, you have to actually accept props as an argument here and call super passing in props. That way this.props actually gets set. So if you ever need your props from the constructor, you have to do that. So I'll make a separate method here called fetch user data. I said date. I meant data. So the idea is we'll call this from the constructor. This.fetch user data. And what's it going to do? It's going to call fetch. The URL it's going to hit, use a template literal. Well, it's going to be this one, but with whatever username we typed in. So https://api.github.com/users/whoever. So that should be this.props.match.params.username, which again is kind of hideously long. So I'll use this trick again, const params is this.state.match. Then I'll just say params.username. And then I want to do something with it afterward. So let's call .then. And we'll supply an arrow function as a callback. We know the response will get passed in here. And in the example we saw, we could just say response.json, which seems pretty cool. And then the results of that would get passed to the next callback. So this should be a user from the GitHub API. So let's just console log it. So we call fetch. When it finishes, it passes the response to our callback here. And we call response.json. Then the JSON should get passed into our next callback. Let's try it out. Oh, cannot property params of undefined. This.state.match. This.props.match. Right. Okay. Let's go to our console. Here we go. Here's my user object. Got the avatar URL. Got list of followers, or number of followers anyway. Got the HTML URL that actually goes to my profile. Got my name, got my login, got my location. You can indicate whether you're job seeking, basically. I don't even know where you do that. Somewhere in your profile you can say that. I don't know that anyone actually uses that, but maybe they do. Cool. So How about instead of console logging it, we actually update state with it? So inside our callback here, once we've got the user object, I could say this.setState user.
Is response.json returning a user?
It's returning whatever JSON the API returned, which in this case is all of this, which looks like a user to me.
Okay.
It's got a name, a login, email, all that stuff.
And so where is so the object that's being passed into response? Where did that come from?
So that is whatever fetch returned. So fetch just hit this URL. Whatever it gives it, whatever response it got, it gets passed in here. And then we knew it was JSON, so we called response.json on it, and it worked. But yeah, if it were something else, it wouldn't work. So let's do something with that now. Let's make sure this works. Let's look at our React Dev Tools. Let's go to this component. State.user. Yep, we got a real user here. Cool. So let's try to do something with that. So down here in our render, instead of just printing out params username, we're not going to do that anymore. We're just going to get stuff out of state. Let's put the avatar in there. Image source equals this.state.user avatar URL. We're going to use that user object a lot, so we could use this trick. Const user equals this.state. Extract the user out of there. So this should be user.avatar underscore URL, I think it was. Always set your alt text, even if it's going to be to nothing. Don't forget self-closing tag. Okay, avatar URL, cool. And let's make ourselves an H2. And we'll say, I know I saw name in there. User.name. I can put in parentheses user.login. And we'll put an H3 that just has the location, user.location. There we go. Big avatar, Dave Struess, D. Struess, Indiana. Heck, let's make it a link to my profile. So how about this line here? Do an href here. I don't need to use a React router link because this isn't a route. This is just an actual URL. So it'll go to user dot, I think it was HTML URL. Here's a trick you may not know. To make a link open in a new tab, you can say target equals underscore blank. Make it open up in a new tab. So click that. And yep, it works. Cool. So now I can look up anybody. Let's look up Dana. What? Didn't change. Why not? When do we call fetch user data? Just in the constructor. Well, we're still in the same component. So it didn't actually unmount the component. So it didn't rerun the constructor. So we maybe need to do this in component did update as well. You follow that? So let's do component did update.
Why does this solve a problem?
Component did update will run every time you receive new props. So what happened when we submitted a new name is we got a new prop in because it's passed into the match props. Yeah. So this will run, the constructor will not. Component did update will receive as its first argument whatever the props were previously. So we can compare that to our current props to see if the username changed. So I don't want to bother to hit the API again unless I know it changed. So I will say if previous props dot match dot params dot username is not equal to this dot props dot match dot params dot username. If that's the case, then call this dot fetch user data again. Okay, so there's Dana. Now I'm hoping I can type me in here. Yep, it changed.
Where did you go to get those profile pictures?
Hmm?
Where did you go to get those profile pictures? Where did you go?
Hired an artist. Yep. So we've got them for the whole fretless team.
How much do you usually pay for an icon?
I can't remember how much that was. She didn't charge a lot. Might have only been like $30. It might have been 60. I can't remember honestly. What's that?
He said he'd love a referral.
Yeah, it may not have been that cheap, but I will look up who it was. There we go. Here's the whole fretless team. Yes. Miles, Dave, Aubrey, Mike, Dana. All right. Cool. Uh-oh. It locked me out. That makes me think it's trying repeatedly. Yep, I'm getting it forbidden here. Or maybe because we're all doing it from the same IP address.
So we're getting like
It's getting blocked. Yeah.
preventing DDoS.
Yeah. So, whoops. But let's use the GitHub API with fetch.